Welcome to Goldphish, where we explore the future of cybersecurity and learning. I'm Esfan from Goldfish, and I'm joined by Jordan, CEO and co-founder of CapSource. Jordan, before we get started, thank you so much for your time and for joining us today.
Hey, likewise. Great to be here.
Jordan, before we get started, you maybe just want to touch on who you are, what you do, and your brief history up until now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Jordan Levy from CapSource. We're an education technology business that's working to support career exploration, career discovery, and professional development for students. We do all of our work by helping schools and educators collaborate with industry through projects, case studies, mentoring, and content. So all of our approach is really exposing students to real world industry challenges, real world industry professionals, and ultimately providing students with the background, competency, and comfort that they need to navigate the next steps in their professional pursuits.
And Jordan, what was your inspiration to start CapSource? Where did that come from?
Yeah, it was my personal experience. I was a very good student starting from, middle school, high school, sat in the front of classes, was regularly participating. I went to office hours. I was close with all my educators. And I kind of realized that, of course, like the way to get a job is through relationships and hard work. But to find the right job is a lot more complicated. And there's so much out there and it's changing so fast. And students are just so far away from their professional careers until they started. And I feel like it should be more of a transition, and that really should be what the purpose and function of higher education is, to make sure students are prepped with the experience and skills that they need. I went to a great school. I went to Lehigh University, again, performed very well in class, but I ultimately chose a career path originally that really wasn't a good fit for me. And I felt like if this was happening to me as a attentive student, what's happening to the students that are less attentive, that are not going to career services, that are not going to career fairs, that are not engaging in recruiting funnels, that don't get internships? What do they do? And the reality is that they start their career lost, underemployed, or really just not with the skills that they need to succeed or pay back their student loans, which obviously is a big problem in the US. So I started it because first and foremost, I wanted my classes to be more engaging and I wanted learning to be more effective and more industry related. I studied undergraduate business and entrepreneurship. So that, is really an itch that I felt. And ultimately, I really love education and learning. I love the world of educators and higher education and high school education and continuing education. So for me, it was kind of like a natural fit to introduce the concept and get industry involved in collaborative programming for students. I'll tell you, the amazing thing is that the companies line up to get involved. I mean, there really is such a demand on their side to get involved. A lot of times they just don't know how to structure a learning experience, right? It's very different than self-serving internship program where you're compensating student talent, young talent, and they're part of your talent pipeline and they're working in departments and they have managers. Like, we're trying to make this really low maintenance, minimal oversight for industry organizations so that students can get this experience, but not look at it as they're beholden to this organization or that they have to dedicate an inordinate amount of time to the collaboration. It's really just discovery. It's just getting started. It's getting your feet wet, getting your palate wet, and then deciding if you want to double down and maybe explore professional opportunities of that organization or similar organizations, similar rules, similar industries. That's really what we're working on providing students.
And Jordan, how do you see AI being used to improve this learning and training experience, like you've mentioned?
This is a great question. I just got off of a product call where we're in the midst of integrating AI into our product. So for us, obviously the students are charged to use AI for the first time, not told, hey, that's cheating, but this is a great way for you to show your best self, to be professional and concise but thorough, articulate. It's a great tool to really make sure that you've fully thought about the concept and the challenge that you're working on for an industry organization. So I think a lot of the initial inertia for schools was to say, oh my God, we can't allow this. We shouldn't allow this. We need to create policies. But the reality is that students are going to be using this. So we need to figure out how to change the education approach so that the tool is actually value added to the students and their careers and their academic pursuits, and not, in conflict with the style of education delivery. And that is, I think, the piece that's harder to solve for, but something that we're working on as a company. So the basic gist of our platform is that an educator will come in and say, I want to create a program that involves industry. So how they explain the program, how they structure the program, how they entice industry organizations to get involved, that will be using AI in the future. So right now it's really just, a form that helps you explain, but in the future it'll be a minimal amount of contribution, and then for you to kind of add and change aspects of that program description so that it meets your needs. Then I think the most crucial thing, so we spent a lot of time and had over the last 10 years since we got started talking to companies about what their challenges were and trying to align them with teaching goals and course constraints, right? So if it's a freshman class versus a graduate business class, if it's a month or 3 months versus 1 week, if it's on-site versus virtual, if it's in engineering versus marketing, like each one of these components changes the way that we align the interests and the goals between the two parties. That whole process, hopefully by the end of this year, will be entirely powered by AI. So you take those course teaching goals, you take the information about the students, you take the aspirations for the faculty and the constraints around time, location, modality, and then you take the company's challenge and say, this is the perfect scope to work on. This is the perfect way to approach where it's going to be low maintenance for the industry, but high impact for them and the students. That's just two ways. We just finished up a case competition with 200 students from over 20 universities participating. They basically worked on a way to make this platform called Wealthfluent, which is a wealth management software as a service, direct to consumer style platform, kind of like what Mint was, but even more attuned to building wealth rather than like cash flow management. So they're trying to make that appealing to Gen Z so that when they cultivate this young this young audience, that they'll stick with them throughout their entire wealth building journey. And so the students, of course, are using AI to help come up with a concept. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be the best performers. So ultimately, the team that won, which was from a university called Chaminade University in Honolulu, they came up with a NIL approach, name, image, likeness, to use college athletes and figure out how these college athletes are now getting paid sponsorships. They have so much wealth. You use them as your kind of like beacon of positive, proactive financial planning. And now the rest of the students that are thinking about wealth building will follow. So I thought that was incredible. To some extent, it might have been AI. To some extent, it might have been the students who came up with the idea, but to execute on delivering it, the best of over 44 teams, that takes nuance. And that's always going to take nuance. And you got to show up and you got to deliver. And those skills are not AI skills. Those are interpersonal skills, transferable skills, hard skills. There's a million phrases for it. But I think the key with experiential learning is you're maximizing the ability for students to use all of those skills in their ability to deliver based on the prompt from a real industry organization.
Yeah, it's definitely adapt or die, right? It's leveraging what we have to your advantage. Jordan, you mentioned obviously some challenges that clients might have come up with or some pain points, but that's one side of it. But I want to dive into what's been the most significant challenge for you as a co-founder in terms of scaling your business.
I think the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur is ultimately solving your problems while building your business. And I think it's just kind of you constantly get bogged down, and then there's just not enough hours in the day to be able to think about product strategy, client relationship management, sales, fundraising, cash flow, finance. So yeah, building teams is hard, managing teams is hard, motivating teams is hard, especially like as we have very long sales cycles. It's just unfortunate, but schools, I've been talking to one school for 4 years about an engagement that's completely success based, meaning I don't even get paid unless I deliver for them. That's just for them, it's just run of the mill academic planning. But for a business, it's really hard because you're just trying to like fill your sales pipeline, you're trying to close deals, you're trying to keep your employees engaged. And it's very hard with a cyclical business to like manage a team and assign them responsibilities where they're doing the same thing and getting better at that thing and enhancing and automating that thing. Like ultimately, if they keep having to task switch between helping to generate new sales, helping to generate marketing content, helping to serve and manage clients. Like it's a lot of disparate tasks. So the hope is obviously the more technical infrastructure and team that we have to support it, the more we can scale. But then it comes the opportunity to swing from the trees rather than climb up and down, right? So I always say like zeros are a rite of passage. Like your first deal might be zero, and then your second deal might be 10, and then your third deal might be 100, and then 1,000, and then several thousand. But right now we're trying to figure out how to convince organizations that they should empower us with a six-figure opportunity. They're looking at our team, they're looking at our maturity, our product, our experience. Like we've been in this industry over 10 years. I've been in this business. This is the 9th year that we've been working on CapSource, and it's really hard to operate above your britches, right? So like I do believe I have the capacity to deliver on several $100,000 deals, but that's a rite of passage that you have to prove and continue to prove by retaining clients and serving those clients and building positive momentums. It's just tough. It's really tough that every once in a while when you have these great opportunities and then they don't come through, and then it's a big letdown for the team, and you work so hard to pitch the business and you had every component thought through, but maybe you just don't have the old enough face or the maturity to close it. So sometimes it's like time will tell, and other times it's like, well, damn, like what else do we need, right? Like, are we missing the mark here? But I think entrepreneurship is all about at the end of the day, when you close the computer, we're not solving world hunger, we're not solving a cure for cancer. This is all about trying to serve students and institutions and industry organizations. If people have issues after hours, we can get to it as soon as we can tomorrow. I think it's a really important thing to build as an entrepreneur, because if you don't have that, then there's not much of a life that you're living anyway. So that's been part of our journey and challenges, but obviously it's so fun to be able to like wake up and make a difference in people's lives. I often say my work along with my team has helped almost 30,000 students put something on their resume. And I remember when I was graduating, I had a traditional like camp counselor job, a bartender, a busboy, and then I got an offer at KPMG in transactions and restructuring. And it's like, wait, where's the middle of the road here? And it really should have been academic exercises, but they weren't designed that way. And my capstone experience, which is like our traditional way of engaging students with companies, it was invented a long time ago. Mine was like a simulation that we were working on selling desktop computers. The sim was built in like 2003. I graduated college in 2014. So like we don't even use desktop computers anymore. And we're building and like we're arguing about like market conditions in this simulated environment. And it's like, come on, just ask the pizza shop down the street, like, hey, can you help us create a financial plan to expand into another storefront? You'll learn more doing that than you will doing a simulation 1,000 times.
And speaking about missing the mark, like you just gave brilliant examples there, Jordan. Are there specific trends? I know both of our businesses are within the education space. Are there specific trends that we should watch out for going forward?
I mean, damn, if AI is not the trend, I don't know what it. The whole idea. It's funny that we all kind of had Siri in our pocket from, I don't know. They probably came out with Siri in like 2012, what 2011.
Sounds about
So we've
right.
had something listening and trying to help us for almost 15 years or something, and it could not answer any questions. And now there's a brain. It's a freaking brilliant brain in your pocket. Like it really calls into question if you're going to college and it's trying to help you figure out how to think, but you have this brain in your pocket that can think 20 times faster. What's the point of college? And that's why my whole hypothesis is that, and it has been for a long time, that higher education is going to go to a very industry integrated model where you're curating these experiences and building networks around pipelines of value for the local economic region and the employers that support that program. And I think this, ultimately will allow the financial burden to be spread between, students and their families and industry. I mean, a long time ago, we should have realized that charging $250,000 for a university is insane. Now it's in a lot of ways closer to 300 all in. That's a lot of money. You could basically buy a house in a median house in like a tier 3 or 4 market for that price. And it's just crazy. What are you getting out of that experience needs to be transferable skills, industry experience, built resume, and a trajectory to start earning 150 within a few years. And if you're not if you're not earning if you're spending $300,000 and you're not earning 150 for 15 years after you graduate, then it's not a good investment because you should be able to pay that program back before you turn 30. And if you're not, you're basically bringing that debt to your grave, which, unfortunately was the way those debt instruments were structured, is that you can't even bankruptcy out of them. So we're just like, you say, hey, I want to better myself. And it's like, well, you could better yourself, but we're going to lock an anchor to your neck until you can pay off the debt. That's crazy. That's no way to build a country. That's no way to build momentum in an economy. So I assume the combination of the pressure from the new federal administration plus the change. I mean, there's less students entering college this year. It's kind of like that birth cliff. It's another trend. And then AI. So like they have three forces just breathing down their neck: less interest, less realizable value, and AI. Like the people will be able to solve the problem much more financially efficiently and time efficiently than going with a traditional route. I've seen it time and time again with schools where you miss a few students of your projected enrollments and you are in hot water. That happens 2 years in a row, restructure. After you restructure, there's a going concern. Schools, it's not exactly like a nimble ship. You can't just like kind of pivot in one way or another. You have to make a decision. And I hope that schools are making the decision to serve their students the type of stuff that we do. Because ultimately, if they don't, they should find out another way to do it. But the answer can't be like turn to chapter 7, because that is just gone. Like I just can't imagine learning that way anymore.
Jordan, if you weren't constrained by budget and you could solve one big problem right now with CapSource, what would it be and why?
Well, to be honest, I think one thing I would really want to do is invest a lot into free resources for students and schools. Like we don't have a good freemium model. It's like very cost prohibitive to build something and then build a paywall. To build that type of intricate of an app is like a multi-million dollar minimum venture, and CapSource was fully bootstrapped and $12,000 in, which is all I had left in my bank account when I started the business 9 years ago. And we've been able to generate millions, but it's ultimately all going back into the business to serve those customers. So I think really for us, we even probably would need more than $1 million check, but let's just say money was no object. I really think that there's work to be done on CapSource as a career discovery and career coach tool, which both could be done with AI. I think that we have this great case library, which we're working on trying to help educators use as course content. So rather than the traditional approach of like talking about concepts, you're applying concepts to real projects, even though you're not actually working with the company. It's just a simulation of what the project was. That usually the way these are built is it's a previous project that was worked on by another student team. So like this is a great set of content, but to make it really sing and to work within classrooms would require a big investment. And then to have coaching and other types of tools and resources that like are really great as free tools. I've always found it so discouraging when you get enticed by something on the internet and you click into it, and before they even demonstrate any value whatsoever, they say you need to enter your credit card. Like I find that to be such a bad model. Like I said, to build freemium, it's just so complicated because then every single action on the app needs to be like
Yeah.
yes or no coded and restructured. So that's something that I would love to do, but I can't imagine a day that I'll be able to do that. I think a lot of our roadmap really is how do we enhance the student experience? So a lot of our tools are actually designed for optimizing the connection between industry and the classroom. To make that experience sing, it really needs to be a very tailored student experience. So how we badge and credential that, how we enable document sharing and communication on the platform, like all of that is stuff that students take very seriously, but it's very hard to build from scratch. So those are some things that money were no object. I also think I would want to work with a lot of more diverse schools, work more with more high schools, because really the decision needs to be made in high school which route to go in, rather than you have very few guidance counselors for the high school environment and you have even fewer career counselors for the college environment. And the funny thing is the whole point of high school is to prepare you for making that decision at 18. Where am I going to go next? And then in college, same thing. It's deciding after your 4 year experience, 2-year experience, depending on what program, where am I going to go next? And for some reason, we diminish that to an extremely minimal amount of resources. And that always boggles my mind. So if there's ways to use tech, that's basically what the value proposition of tech is. How do you take this one dream and of an idea of helping students and supporting students and provide that tool to the organization, the institution, that they can help solve the problem for so many students at once? That's something that I would love to do with unlimited resources. Otherwise, no, we're just continuing to paddle upstream and make waves in higher education, trying to get students something on their resume. That's our core narrow mission, and how we do that.
You're doing a great job at it. Jordan, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. If the listeners want to find out more about you or CapSource or whatever you're doing, what's the easiest way they can find out or reach you?
Yeah. So our website's capsource.io. You'll actually see you can register and explore the app if you'd like to check it out. I also am very active on LinkedIn, so feel free to shoot me a note there, Jordan Levy. And then otherwise, you can actually book a meeting directly through the CapSource website with me, with our team. So those are usually the best ways to get in touch with us.
Awesome. Thanks, Jordan. Thanks for your time and your insight. I appreciate it.